Good morning and welcome to Elville & Associates and another installment of the Elville webinar series. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Today's topic is one we've offered many times over the years, MarylandABLE accounts and how they benefit your loved one with special needs, presented by MarylandABLE's Outreach and Communications Manager, Kelly Nelson. My name is Jeff Stauffer, Community Relations Director with Elville & Associates, and I'll be your moderator for today's presentation. A few general housekeeping items. We welcome your general questions today. So when you have a question for Kelly, please note it in the questions panel on your screen, and we will pause periodically to address all your questions. Your questions really add value. They help the presentation and help others learn. So don't be shy in posing your questions at any time. You also received the presentation by email from me to take notes on it if you wish yesterday. If you didn't receive the presentation for some reason, it is also available in the section marked handouts on your screen to download at this time. Welcome as well to our professionals on today's presentation for CFPs, CPAs, and most other professionals. You may receive 1.5 continuing education hours for attending. And per my attendance records requirements on my end, if I don't have it already and you'd like the CE hours, please send me your ID number if you have one, and I can submit your CE hours for approval first thing tomorrow and send out certificates as well. Also, as always, everyone will also receive a post-webinar feedback email right after the presentation. So please take just a couple minutes to fill out this very brief and simple survey to offer us your feedback about today's presentation. And we always read and value every comment that you have to share with us. Here at Elville & Associates, we always work every day with clients and their families with the ideals of client education, collaboration, and compassion in mind. We're always available for free consultations to discuss your planning needs or any document reviews that you may have or any questions that you might have. So please feel free to reach out to me with any questions at any time. I'm always available most of the time. I have the privilege and pleasure of introducing today's presenter and longtime friend of Elville & Associates, Ms. Kelly Nelson. Kelly has worked in the field of disabilities for more than 30 years. She has served in many roles supporting people with disabilities and their families through advocacy, education, and connecting them to vital resources within their community. As a parent of a child with disabilities, Kelly is passionate about helping her daughter to become a confident self-advocate as she pursues her goals of working and living independently in the community. As the Outreach and Communications Manager at MarylandABLE, she is delighted to have the opportunity to connect with many people with disabilities, their families, and the staff that support them as she travels throughout Maryland, educating people about the benefits of having an ABLE account. Through her outreach endeavors, Kelly is excited to see her work with MarylandABLE is helping to promote personal choice, independence, and economic stability for people with disabilities. It is really great to have Kelly back. We've been working with Kelly for 8 years at this point, Kelly. So it's great to have you back. We have a really brief poll we'd like to offer just to see what's brought you here today and how much you know about MarylandABLE. And then we're going to jump right into the presentation because Kelly has a lot to share. And the simple question is, how familiar are you with MarylandABLE accounts? I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. It'll take just a minute. And the choices are: 1, I have an ABLE account and I'm here to learn more. 2, I have heard about ABLE accounts and I'm here to learn more. 3, I want to set up an ABLE account and have questions. Or 4, lastly, I'm an advisor here to learn to better serve my clients. So welcome one and all, whatever's brought you here today. We appreciate you taking a few minutes to be here with Elville & Associates in our webinar series. If it's your first time or your 30th time, always try to have something interesting for you. Okay. We've got about 80% of people have voted, cast their choice. 14% say I have an ABLE account and I'm here to learn more. 61% say I have heard of ABLE accounts and I'm here to learn more. 14% say I want to set up an ABLE account and have questions. And finally, 11% say I'm an advisor here to learn to better serve my clients. All great choices. So thank you so much for participating. I'm going to close that out. Kelly, I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter. You should see that button pop up in just a moment. Yes. There we go. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Kelly Nelson, the Outreach and Communications Manager for the MarylandABLE program. I am excited to be with you here this morning, and I want to thank our dear friends at Elville & Associates, specifically Jeff Stauffer, our wonderful host today, for inviting MarylandABLE back every year for many years, and also just for putting together an amazing monthly webinar series for the community to learn about all different kinds of topics. So thank you so much, Jeff. And today my goal is to share with you information about ABLE accounts. We're going to be doing a big overview of ABLE, the legislation that makes ABLE accounts possible. We're going to learn about the eligibility criteria and who can help open and manage an account. And then we're going to do a little shift, and we're going to start talking about some of the features and benefits that are specific to the MarylandABLE program. So we're going to cover a lot of information today. My goal is to stop along the way so you guys have an opportunity to put questions in. Jeff is going to moderate that questions box. And since we've been working together and doing this and partnering for so many years, he kind of knows a lot about ABLE, so he knows if you put a question in the box early on that we're going to cover in a few more slides, he may not ask it then, but save it for the end. But I do promise you this, does an amazing job. If we don't get to everyone's questions, or if your questions are really specific, he will email those to me after the presentation, because we want to make sure that everyone that's here today is going to get their questions answered. So we do promise you that. Let's go ahead and go to full screen here, and we'll get started. Okay, so let's talk about ABLE. What is ABLE? ABLE is a way for people with disabilities and their families to finally be able to save money and invest money without losing those critical means-tested benefits. These are going to be things such as SSI, Medicaid, and other types of waiver services. So for many people with disabilities over the last several decades, they've had a real challenge in that they were recipients of these public benefits, such as SSI, and that was wonderful because they did receive that monthly cash benefit. They oftentimes would receive Medicaid, which would help with the insurance, and this would give them an opportunity to qualify for important waiver services, such as food, energy, or housing. The challenge with this is that these folks are not permitted to have more than $2,000 in assets collectively. So between checking account, savings account, whatever you have, you can't have beyond that $2,000 limit, or people would jeopardize those benefits. So this has been a real problem. So for many decades, people with disabilities, their family members, advocacy groups, service providers, they've all been working really hard, or they did work really hard, I should say, in advocating for a way for people with disabilities to be able to save and invest like everyone else. And thanks to these advocacy efforts, and under the leadership of one particular father named Stephen Beck, back in 2014, the Stephen A. Beck Achieving a Better Life Experience, that's where we get the acronym for ABLE, or the ABLE Act as we know it, was passed into law. And what this did is it gave states across the country the opportunity to open ABLE programs. However, it did not provide any funding to run these programs, and it didn't federally mandate that states do this. So people say, well, gosh, if this has been, a thing since 2014, how is it that I'm just finding out about this? So the reason is the states, they had to find a way to open these programs, to run these programs, and who's going to do it, and where are we going to get the money, right? So it did take some time to get these programs up and running. Here in Maryland, Governor Hogan signed our ABLE Act into law in 2016. So we are over 5 years old now. Our program launched in 2017, and in November, we're going to celebrate our 6th anniversary. I'm happy to say we're doing really well here in Maryland. We have almost 6,000 MarylandABLE account holders. Most of them are in-state residents. We do have people that live in other states who just choose to be with MarylandABLE because we are open for national enrollment. And we have these particular individuals, account holders, together collectively have been able to save and invest up to, we're almost at the $70 million mark. So these are folks that at one time could not have saved their money outside of a $2,000 limit. And with an ABLE Act that made it possible for people to put money into an ABLE account and be able to save beyond that $2,000 limit and actually save up to $100,000 in an ABLE account. And we'll talk more about those regulations. And if you want to ever know where our regulations are held, they are actually part of the Internal Revenue Code. We are Section 529A in the law. Some of you may be saying, Section 529, that sounds familiar to me. That's our college savings plans. So we're kind of sisters in the IRS code, if you will, all right? So let's go ahead and talk about the main reasons that people are interested in open ABLE accounts. So what we're going to be talking about right now are things that are going to apply to ABLE accounts nationwide. And there are 47 ABLE programs across the country, Maryland being one of them. So all the things I'm talking about initially are going to apply to every ABLE account nationwide. So the main reason people are interested in opening ABLE accounts is that it increases their savings limit before those SSI cash benefits are impacted. That's that $2,000 limit that we were talking about. So folks that were previously having to watch to make sure that they never exceeded a $2,000 balance between all of their assets are now able to save up to $100,000 without jeopardizing their benefits. So that gives people an opportunity to not only protect their SSI monthly cash benefit, but it also gives them the opportunity to protect things like Medicaid, waiver services, food, energy, and housing assistance. So the other reason is that money that is within the ABLE account, whether it's saved or invested, the account holder does not pay taxes on the earnings, not while the money is in the ABLE account and not when they take withdrawals, provided that those withdrawals are used to pay for qualified disability expenses. So this is another wonderful advantage. There's no penalty for taking the money out at any particular time, as long as you're using that money to pay for qualified disability expenses. It's not like a 401k where you have to wait to a certain age to be able to access the money. You can put money in the ABLE account at the beginning of the month, and if you needed it at the end of the month, you could withdraw it and use it. So it's a really practical tool. The other reason is that folks here in Maryland, this is the one area I'm going to say is going to go a little off topic from the regulations that apply nationwide. But here in Maryland, we have access to a Maryland state income tax deduction up to $2,500 per contributor per beneficiary. So that means that family and friends that are contributing to an ABLE account for a family member with a disability are able to take those contributions as an income deduction on their Maryland state taxes. There are also many other state programs that offer an incentive similar to this, the way that Maryland has. Not all programs have it, but that's why we always say, you know, if you're calling from another state or you're attending from another state today, we often just suggest looking at your state's ABLE program if they have one, because there may be tax incentives for your state as well. And the other reason is that we offer easy online enrollment and account management. You can enroll 24 hours a day by doing it on the website. You don't have to wait for a certain enrollment period, and you have easy access to the funds in your ABLE account. We're going to cover a few more things about the general requirements for an ABLE account, and then we're going to pause a bit for questions. So let's take a look at who is eligible to open an ABLE account. So according to the current regulations, we know that you have to meet two criteria. The first is the person has to have had developed a disability prior to age 26. Now that I've said that, I am going to tell you that thanks to the passage of the Able Age Adjustment Act, we are going to see that starting in January 1 of 2026, they're going to raise this age to making sure that a person had the disability before they were 46 years old, before their 46th birthday. So that is really going to make a big difference for millions of Americans actually across the country who are currently not eligible for an ABLE account because they didn't experience their disability before their 26th birthday. Folks such as veterans, people with diagnosis of later on things that may come later in life, like Lou Gehrig's disease, MS, things like that, or even people with significant mental health diagnosis that don't always show up before the 26th birthday. But just for now, bear in mind that we do have to have a person that has the eligibility of having their disability before their 26th birthday until we get to January 1 of 2026. The second criteria is that the person has to have a disability that meets the Social Security Administration's definition of a disability. So that's one of the ways that we'll know right away if a person qualifies. And when you're in the enrollment process, it'll often ask you this right up front. It'll say, do you currently have, are you currently receiving any benefits such as SSI or SSDI? If the person enrolling answers yes to that question, well, we already know that you have a disability that meets the Social Security Administration's definition of a disability. But let's just say you're here today because you have a family member who's under the age of 18 and they're not currently receiving SSI benefits, which is not uncommon. A lot of times people that have a disability, if they try to apply for SSI benefits before their 18th birthday, they don't qualify because Social Security is going to be looking at the entire family's income, and that usually puts them over the threshold for being eligible to receive those benefits. But once the person turns 18, then they're going to look at just that individual's income, which is oftentimes much lower or maybe not anything at all. So sometimes we see people with disabilities that are not receiving SSI. That doesn't mean you can't have an ABLE account. It just means that what you'll need to do is go to our website under our forms section. There's a form there called the Physician's Diagnosis Form. And the next time you go to your physician, you just have that person fill out the form. It's going to list the disability there, the disability code, and sign it. And you just want to maintain that for your records. You don't actually have to submit that at the time of enrollment, but you want to have it available to you in case you are ever asked to provide that to someone. So that's a bit about our eligibility. Okay, now let's talk about who owns the ABLE account and who can help manage or enroll in the ABLE account. The first thing we want to keep in mind is that the ABLE account is always owned by the person with the disability, no matter what age they are. They are both the owner and the beneficiary of the ABLE account. So many of our ABLE account holders do manage their own account. We also have many people who need assistance managing their ABLE account, and that's fine. We have what we call the authorized legal representative that can be appointed to serve as the person helping to manage the account. So this is going to work a little differently depending upon the situation. So let's take a look at a family member who's over the age of 18 and can manage their own ABLE account. They can go online, open their account, manage it themselves. What if we have a situation where we have a family member that's a child? They're under the age of 18. In that case, a parent or guardian can open and manage that ABLE account for them. Actually, they would have to do so because as a minor, they're not able to have their own bank account. So that's a pretty simple process there. The other thing, the other scenario is if we look at those of you who are here who may have a family member who's over the age of 18, but you know that they're not going to be able to open and manage that account on their own, they're actually going to need a lot of assistance. And in some cases, that person can't provide consent. So in that case, we have a couple of options here. The first is if a person can give consent, they could sign a power of attorney that would put you in charge of their financial decisions. And this is something that you could seek the advice and guidance from Elville and Associates about a power of attorney, or in some cases guardianship, because the needs of the family member are much more significant. So maybe what is more appropriate in that case would be guardianship. Again, that would be something that Elville can assist you with. But in the case of families who have a family member who cannot provide consent under our new regulations, and this is something new. So those of you who either have an ABLE account or have heard about it a little bit in the past, this is an update to our regulations that went into effect here in Maryland on June 1st. So under the old regulations, if a person was an adult and was not able to provide consent for someone to manage their ABLE account, they would have to either pursue guardianship, right? And then when the family member produced the guardianship papers, we could set them up as their account representative based on the guardianship. But under the new regulations, it says that the following people, and in this order, this hierarchical order, can open and manage an ABLE account. So it could be a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, a representative payee, okay, in that order. So that's how that would go. That's for someone who can serve as someone to open the account and manage the account. Now, if you have an adult family member who is able to give consent, he or she can appoint anyone that he or she wants to. Okay, it doesn't have to follow that hierarchy. It could be anyone that they appoint. So I know these are a lot of questions. I would probably have a lot of questions, I'm sorry to say. I'm going to take a little pause here. Jeff, we're going to check in with you because we've covered eligibility. We've covered who can open and manage that account. So let's see if we have any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I did note those in the chat for you. Is that the way you'd like me to approach those, or would you like me to pose those to you verbally?
If you could post them to me, that just share them with me.
Sure, very good. So first question is, am I able to take a set amount each month from my son's Social Security disability check and deposit it into an ABLE account?
Yes, you can. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but yes, the answer is yes.
Okay, and could you please tell us the exact number of business days it takes to transfer funds to an ABLE account, when it would be available to move to an ABLE debit card, and when the ABLE card could be used to pay bills?
Okay. So that sounds like a three-part question there. Okay, so when we make contributions to an ABLE account, it can take, it's not instantaneous. We're going to be linking our ABLE account with an existing bank account, a checking or savings account of your choice. So that money has to transfer from your bank, or the linked bank, I should say, into the ABLE account. And if it's going into the cash savings option, it takes about 2 to 5 days, depending upon if there's a weekend. If you're putting money into one of the investment options, and this is kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit here, it could take a little bit longer, because then the money has to be utilized to purchase investments with Vanguard. So it could take a little longer for that to post. And that also works in reverse. So if you have your money in the cash savings option and you want to withdraw it, you can usually get it within about 2 or 3 days. But it's going to take a little longer if you have to sell some of those investments from your portfolio and have it transferred back to the account. The amount of time that it takes to load funds onto your ABLE prepaid card, I can check with you. I don't want to give you the wrong information, but it can take between about 5 days, just because it's going from the ABLE account to an outside financial institution, TrueLink, who manages the ABLE prepaid cards for us. So if you want to, Jeff, if you want to send me that person's name, I can go ahead and check in our program disclosure book and find out the amount of time that it takes to load that.
Will do. Thank you. Next question is, I think we talked about this briefly. At what age can you open the ABLE account?
That's a great question, and I'm so glad that you posed that question, because oftentimes people hear that age of eligibility and they think, oh my goodness, now I have to wait until I'm 26 to open that ABLE account, or darn it, I didn't open it before I was 26, now I can't have one. And the fact of the matter is, you can open an ABLE account for someone that was born yesterday with a disability, or we have account holders who don't hear about ABLE until they're in their 70s and they're open ABLE accounts. As long as the person has had the onset of their disability prior to their 26th birthday, it doesn't matter when you open the ABLE account. And especially, I like to point this out, that especially for families who are caring for a child that has a disability that is present in birth and is going to need assistance and help, the earlier you establish that ABLE account, the better it is for you. And this is an example where I'd like to just share some personal experience. I know Jeff mentioned when he introduced me that in addition to working for MarylandABLE, I'm also a parent of a 19-year-old young lady who has multiple disabilities. And I've got some practical life experience with ABLE accounts as well. And I've really been able to see how it has impacted our daughter in her ability to learn some financial literacy skills, also, learn about saving and learning a little bit about money in general, because we include her in as we're managing this account. But also equally important is what it has done for her father and I, as it's given us a way to be able to plan and prepare for the future. Okay, we're going to talk a lot more about this when we get down the road a little bit, when we talk about the differences between trust and ABLE accounts. But it's a wonderful way to be able to put money either in a cash savings account or in a investment portfolio for the future, and be able to use these funds. Our daughter was born with a disability, and at that time, 19 years ago, there was no such thing as an ABLE account. But I think to myself how vastly different it would have been had this existed back then, especially for someone who had such extensive medical needs for the first 7 years of her life, and very involved medically. And people would say to me all the time, oh my goodness, we just don't know, we wish we could help you, what could we do? If this ABLE account existed, I could have said, well, if you're interested in helping to pay for the, covering some of these medical costs, here's a link to her gifting page. And people could have contributed. It would have given her dad and I a way to put money in there, take a tax deduction on our Maryland state taxes for some of these expenses we were putting out. So definitely think about this for families who have a family member that is going to need care throughout their life. The earlier you start, the better. Okay, I took a little diversion there, Jeff, but go ahead with the next one.
Very well said. Thank you. So we do have a few more here I think will be appropriate. Is that income deduction doubled for a married couple?
Yes, it is. So those who are married and filing joint returns, they can claim an income deduction up to $5,000 on their Maryland state taxes.
Okay. How many family members or friends can contribute to the account?
Best news, anybody, and I mean anybody, can contribute to a person's ABLE account. Family members, friends. It doesn't matter who wants to give money to the ABLE account. They're able to do so if you send them a link to the gifting page.
Okay. Can a nurse practitioner sign the form? Nowadays, mostly nurses are seeing patients.
It says a licensed physician. So if the nurse practitioner is a licensed physician, then it seems like that would be appropriate. Again, you're not going to have this physician's form with you at time of enrollment, but in the event that you were ever audited, or the person with the ABLE account was ever audited in the future, this would be the IRS, by the way, when I talk about an audit. It's not going to be a MarylandABLE audit. It would be the Internal Revenue Service if you were ever pulled for an audit. And they're going to want to know two things. This is a special tax advantage savings account intended only for people with disabilities. So the IRS would want to know two things. Number one, do you have a disability? Right? And as long as you're either getting SSI or SSDI, or that you can show that you have this signed by a licensed physician, that's an acceptable thing. And the second thing they want to know is, hey, you know, how is this money being spent? Is it being spent on the account holder, on the beneficiary? So.
Okay. Let's try a couple brief other ones. We've got a number of them, but I certainly want you to get to your material, Kelly. My son has a joint account with me. He is 21 years of age. Can we link this account to a MarylandABLE account?
Yes, you can.
Okay. And can a regular bank account be converted to an ABLE account, or is this a different account altogether? Can all banks create ABLE accounts?
Okay, so there's a two-part question there, and that's an excellent question, because I think we need to clarify that this ABLE account is a special bank. It's a special account that is created because of this federal legislation. So ABLE accounts, money that's held within an ABLE account, Social Security and Medicaid, they cannot count the money in that ABLE account against the person when figuring for benefits, okay? As long as it doesn't exceed that $100,000 limit, their SSI remains intact, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute as well. So money held within a regular checking or savings account can be counted by the IRS. So it is indeed a different one. So you don't go to a bank to open an ABLE account. You go online to the ABLE program of your choice. So for example, with MarylandABLE, you would go to MarylandABLE.org and you would click a button that says open an ABLE account now, and you would do it online. And at some point in that enrollment process, it's going to ask you to link to your ABLE account a bank account of your choice. So this could be your checking account, your savings account. One of our other attendees said, hey, my son and I share, we have an account with both of our names on it. She could link it to that. This is how you're going to get money into your ABLE account and how you're going to take withdrawals. So you don't go to the bank and ask them for an ABLE account. You go online and you link your existing bank account. It could be a federal bank, a state bank, a savings and loan, a local bank, it doesn't matter.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. We've got some more, but let's go ahead and move on for now. Okay. That's okay.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, let's take a look at some important things we need to keep in mind regarding contributions to our ABLE account. So here in Maryland, in order to open an ABLE account, you have to make an initial contribution to your ABLE account for $25. After that, you decide how much money you want to put into your ABLE account and when you want to do it, as long as those subsequent contributions are at least a minimum of $5, right? But what we want to keep in mind, and this is the big one, again, that's going to apply to ABLE accounts nationwide, is we have what we call a standard annual contribution limit. That's $17,000. So every calendar year, you can put up to $17,000. Your ABLE account balance can continue to grow beyond $17,000, but the amount that you can actually contribute per calendar year is limited to $17,000. Now, this does change from time to time. I believe when I started with MarylandABLE, this limit was $14,000, but it's actually tied to the federal gift tax exclusion law. So every time the IRS changes the gift tax exclusion that we all are able to benefit from, our annual contribution limit is going to grow with that. So that's an important thing to remember. And this is a great place to talk about the differences between ABLE accounts and special needs trusts. So ABLE accounts are a wonderful tool. They're easy to set up. You have easy access to your funds. It's a very low maintenance fee to keep the ABLE account. But the challenge with ABLE is that you can only put up to $17,000 a year in there. So for those of you who are joining me, who are thinking about using ABLE as a long-term financial planning tool, this is where we see a need for multiple tools. Because if you were thinking of leaving your estate or part of your estate to your adult child or your family member with a disability, you could only contribute up to $17 a year. And that's not going to work for large life insurance policies or part of our estates, right? So we want to have alternate planning tools. And this is where we see the need for a special needs trust. Now, I'm in no means an expert on special needs trusts. That's why we like to partner with Elville, because they can answer all of your questions about the various types of special needs trusts. There's first party trust, there's third party trust, there's pooled trust. There's lots of different options. A trust is not a trust. There's many different kinds. So you definitely want to check with them about that. But the good news about a special needs trust is you don't have a limit on how much you could put into a special needs trust. You could put $100 into the trust, or you could put $100 billion in a trust. So this is where we can look at that as a great tool for being able to leave our estate and things that we want, and working with someone like Elville or people that are have a specialty. And this is the important thing here. We really, as family members of people with disabilities, we do not want to just go to anyone that says that they can create a trust, but rather we want someone who has experience in working with clients that have disabilities and have a good understanding of public benefits. Because sadly, I have heard of many families that went to an attorney that created a trust. It wasn't a special needs trust, but they didn't understand that, and only to find out that their family members' benefits were not protected because they didn't have expertise in that area. So that is one of the main differences that we want to think about. And certainly an ABLE account is a wonderful place to start to get us being able to save and invest for the future, being able to access funds today, but thinking about down the road, how are we going to handle this situation when we're no longer here and we want to be able to share our estate? So this is where estate planning attorneys and elder care attorneys such as Elville would be a lot of help to you. So now that we've talked about that $17,000 standard annual contribution, I'm going to turn around and give you the exception to the rule, right? There's always got to be an exception. And in this case, it is the able to work contribution. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to get into the weeds here, but I want y'all to know that this exists. If you have a family member and they have an ABLE account and they're working, they have the opportunity, if they qualify for able to work contributions, to contribute above and beyond that $17,000 limit. So this is how the criteria goes for that. If they're working and they're not currently contributing to a retirement account through their employer, or their employer is not contributing to a retirement account on their behalf, that could be things such as a 401k, 403b, things like that. If they're not taking advantage of that tax advantage savings, they can contribute above and beyond to their ABLE account up to $13,590. And this does change every year. This amount is going to change because it's equal to the federal poverty level for a one-person household. That's how they determine what this amount is going to be. So for this year, it's $13,590. So if you have a family member who's working and they're making $5,000 a year at a part-time job, if they wanted to, they can contribute an additional $5,000. You could put $17,000. Anybody can contribute that towards that $17,000, but he or she could put $5,000 in addition to that. Say down the line they get a full-time job and they're making $20,000. I'm just making these numbers up. $20,000 a year. They would still be limited to be able to just have an additional amount of that $13,590. So it does give them a way to be able to make those extra contributions. Okay, if this applies to you, definitely reach out to me if you have additional questions about it, because when you make a contribution to the ABLE account, it's always going to ask you, is this going to go towards that standard contribution limit, or is it going to go into able to work? So if your family member is eligible, you always want to have them fill up that able to work bucket, if you will, and leave that other bucket for that $17,000 that anybody can contribute to. All right, another big number we want to keep in mind is the $100,000 ABLE account balance. This is something we want to keep in mind, and what is going to happen if you exceed $100,000 in an ABLE account, which you can do if you choose to. All right. At $100,000, if the person is receiving SSI cash benefits, what would happen is they would push a pause button on those monthly cash benefits. However, their Medicaid and any waivers that they're receiving would continue. They would stop getting the SSI monthly cash benefit. Other Medicaid and other types of waivers will continue until such a time that person may spend money from the ABLE account and the account balance would fall below 100,000. Social Security would be able to automatically reactivate those monthly cash benefits because the difference is they were not disenrolled. You have money outside of an ABLE account and you exceed their asset limit, which in this case for SSI is 2,000. What would happen is they give you a little time to spend that money down, but if you didn't do it, you would become disenrolled from Social Security benefits, and you'd have to start the process all over again. You would also lose your Medicaid and any waivers. So that's the big important difference. People say, what is the difference between saving in a regular account and saving in an ABLE? That is the big difference right there. So I do need to let you know that you can, if you choose, save above and beyond $100,000 because some people are not receiving SSI, they receive SSDI. And SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance. These are for people who have at one point in their lives worked, paid into the system, right? They have a disability now, they're eligible for an ABLE account. They don't have an asset limit. They have an income limit. They can only earn so much, but they can have more than $2,000. So some people don't have to worry about that asset limit and they can continue to save. You can actually continue to make contributions to your ABLE account up to $500,000. Let your account balance grow up to that. But if it were to reach $500,000, and again, remember guys, this is coming in at $17,000 a year. It's going to take a while before you even hit $500,000 if you were going to do this. We could no longer accept contributions to the ABLE account. Your account balance could continue to grow because of interest or dividends or whatever, but we couldn't accept contributions until the balance fell below that. I know that was a lot. Let me just tell you one other thing about contributions for those of you who may have opened a 529 college savings plan for your family member and you're thinking, well, he or she may not be using it now. I don't really know what's going to happen. You have the opportunity to be able to roll over funds from the 529 college savings into an ABLE account. You're still going to be subject to that $17,000 limit. So if grandma opened an account for your family member when he or she was born and she's got $20,000 in there, you could roll 17 over this year and then the remaining 3,000 over next year. You just kind of ladle it out until you're able to roll it all over. So that is a benefit. Currently with this ABLE Financial Planning Act is set to sunset December 31st of 2025. So if there's anybody out there that could take advantage of that, you want to do that before 2025, December 31, 2025. Okay, and the good news about this is once that happens, your family member can still access those funds for college or any type of education, but it's also going to open it up now to be able to use those funds that were formerly just for education and now use them for anything that's going to support your family member in his health, independence, or quality of life. All right. So, Jeff, do we want to take just like a minute or two pause and see if we have any questions about anything that we've covered?
Sure thing. Let's take a look here. If you're the guardian of person and there is another person that is guardian of property, can the guardian of a person open an ABLE account?
So it would have to be the person that has guardian of property because that will be that person that would be managing the ABLE account.
Does the $100,000 amount apply annually or for the life of the ABLE account? You can clarify that.
Sure. So the $100,000 is an account balance, at which point, if you exceed that $100,000, that's where you would be going to have the SSI cash benefits paused. You can continue, if you choose, continue to grow that and let it exceed 100,000 and keep growing, but understand that those SSI cash benefits would be paused. So you're not going to be able to put 100,000 in 1 year. It's going to take a number of years for you to get to the point where you would have $100,000 in there. So it's just the account balance.
Okay. Can you write a check out of a MarylandABLE account?
Yes and no. In Maryland, no. In other states that have ABLE programs, some of them do offer a checking account feature. Maryland does not. We decided to go with a prepaid card as a way to be able to make payments. We also have the opportunity to set up monthly payments from a third-party payment system. So you'd be able to go into your account and set up these third-party payments that are going to be, if you know that every month your rent is going to be $1,200, you can go ahead and set that up so it can be handled that way.
Okay. Let's do a couple more briefly, if that's okay. Does the child need to have a specific diagnosis when applying for MarylandABLE, for example, autism or a rare genetic condition?
It would just have to be, you'd want to be able to prove that the child does have a disability. So if your physician, when you take the physician form to the doctor, they would have to pick a diagnosis at that time.
Okay. And then we had a question about qualified disability expense examples. I believe you're going to talk about that. Yes?
Yes, in just a minute, I will. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Sure. So let's look at what happens when we have the money either saved or invested in the ABLE account. And in the interest of time, I really cannot get into the weeds on this, but I just want you guys to look at the slide and know that you have options and you can learn more about these options. Let me show you really quickly what they are. We have the first option is a cash option. This is an FDIC insured interest-bearing account, okay? So that's one way to have the money. People, I would say, oh my goodness, probably the majority of our ABLE account holders like having at least a portion of their money in the cash savings option because it's easily, you get to it in a couple of days, you can take withdrawals from it, you don't have to wait long, and they know it's going to be there, right? It's FDIC insured, they don't have to worry about fluctuations in the market. They're like, look, I want to make sure I've got this money there when I need it. Other folks, it really comes down to how you're using your ABLE account. They're more interested in the long-term investment options, of which we have 4. We have 4 of these that are managed by Vanguard, and they're just established for people who have different timelines for their investments that they're thinking of, different risk tolerances. The first one is a conservative option, which is going to have a mixture of 80% in bonds and 20% in stocks. The moderate is going to be a 50-50 split between stocks and bonds. The aggressive option is going to be 84% in the market and 16% in bonds. And our fixed income is 100% bonds. So you can see we've tried to offer different types of portfolio mixes depending upon what your risk tolerance is. If you keep your money in the cash savings option, there is no asset-based fee for that. But if you do choose one of the 4 investment options, Vanguard does charge an asset-based fee. I cannot specifically recall off the top of my head what the fee is for each one of those options, but if you go to our website and click on our program disclosure book, which is available at the bottom of the website page, it will go into the mixture of all of these investments, what is included in that investment, what the portfolio mix is, and the asset-based fee that would be associated with it. Okay. Good news is when you make a contribution to your ABLE account, you can choose something different every time. Maybe when you open up your ABLE account, you put that $25 in there, you just put it in the cash option, and a couple months later, or at some point you say, you know what, I may be interested in one of those investment options. The next time you make a contribution, you can select one of those options at that time. So no pressure initially to figure out which one. You can have multiple. All right, good news about contributions. We can have anybody contribute to an ABLE account. It could be the account owner, him or herself, family, friends. If they're working, an employer can contribute to it. They can make their able to work contributions with their own earned income. If they get unemployment checks, they can put that in there. Economic stimulus payments was a big thing, you know, during the pandemic, because people weren't able to go out and spend money. They were having their balances were growing and growing and growing. They didn't want to exceed that $2,000 limit, so they said, oh my goodness, we better get one of these ABLE accounts open. They put the money into the ABLE account. They were able to save it for the future when they wanted it or needed it. We talked about those rollovers from a 529 college savings plan. Some people get back payments from benefits. Sometimes, you know, there's a delay in getting your benefits. You may get a check for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 sometimes. By the time all this stuff is settled and the dust is settled, they're able to put that money into the ABLE account, not worry about that resource limit. Small inheritances, right? Small settlements, things that would be under that $17,000 limit. So let's take a look at these qualified disability expenses, because, you know, ABLE accounts, yes, they're established for saving and investing in the future, but they're also created so that people with disabilities can access these funds whenever they need them for anything at all that's going to support them in their health, their independence, or their quality of life. And that is, by the way, the definition of a qualified disability expense: any service, any item that is going to support the beneficiary in health, independence, or quality of life. Very broad definition. So what the IRS did do is they listed some categories, not intending that this be an all-inclusive list, but rather to give you guys some ideas. So let's take a look at health, prevention, and wellness. I like to use this as an example because most of you are thinking, oh yeah, I get that. You know, it's doctor co-pays and prescriptions. That's cool. But look at wellness. These are going to be things like gym memberships, yoga classes, right? Therapeutic horseback riding. You've got to think more broad in terms of overall wellness, okay? Housing, rent or mortgage. So like we were talking about, setting up those withdrawals or monthly distributions to pay for rent. This is one area the IRS is very specific about. They say if you're going to use ABLE funds to pay for rent or mortgage, you want to make sure that that contribution is withdrawn from your ABLE account in the same month that you're going to be paying that rent or mortgage. So in other words, you don't want to say, oh, my rent is $1,000 a month. January 1, I'm just going to pull $12,000 out of my ABLE account and let it sit in my regular checking account, and then I'll write a check, because that could cause problems with, you know, having that regular checking account now is going to be over-resourced for $2,000. You can use it for transportation. So this could be Lyfts, Ubers. It could be an adaptation to a van, or, you know, any type of, you know, vehicle that you would need for transportation of a person that has accessibility things that they need. You can use this for basic living expenses, utilities, food, clothing, right? Here we look at legal fees. So if you want to establish a trust, or if you want to do anything like that, or have your taxes done for professional services, you can see there's a wide variety of things. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this one right now, because I know somebody's going to have this question. I know it. They're going to say to me, what about a vacation? Can a person use their ABLE account to pay for a vacation? And that's where I'm going to put you on the spot, Jeff. I know you don't want to do it, but I'm going to ask you to answer that question. Could a person, based on that criteria I gave you, supporting someone in their health, independence, or quality of life, could they or could they not use ABLE funds to pay for a vacation?
I'm going to say the answer is yes, Kelly.
Yes, it is. Quality of life, health. I don't think anyone on this planet doesn't benefit health-wise, physically, emotionally, mentally, from a vacation. Okay, the difference is you can't use an ABLE account to pay for an entire family's vacation. Let me give you a practical example.
Kelly, let me ask you this. What if somebody's daughter wants to go to Disney?
Ah, yes, yes. Well, I actually have a really good story to tell about that because my daughter said her dream of her life was to go to Disney. She had never been. And every year for the holidays and for her birthday, she told her family members, don't get me another DVD. I don't want another video game. Please put money in my ABLE account because one day I'm going to go to Disney. And for those of you who have been to previous presentations of mine, you're probably sick of hearing me talk about Lily saving for her Disney trip, but I am happy to say that last August we were able to go to Disney and Lily was able to use the funds in her ABLE account to pay for her park tickets, her airfare, her portion of the hotel, her meals. So as you can see, I'm talking about her expenses, right? She wasn't able to pay for the entire Nelson family to go on vacation, but rather to support her. So some people are saying, well, what if my family member can't travel without someone? Obviously, there's going to be a need for support for that person. So yes, you could use ABLE funds to pay for someone to support your family member in going on that vacation. So any other questions about those QDEs, qualified disability expenses?
Let's take a look, Kelly. Would medical equipment fall under assistive technology as an allowable expense?
It does. And again, if you don't see a category name for something, like my daughter was on oxygen for first 7 years, you know, there's not a category that says medical equipment, but absolutely, I could not maintain her health without oxygen, right? So that would be meeting that need of health, independence, or quality of life. We do just recommend that you just keep your receipts for whatever disbursements you take from that ABLE account. You're not going to submit them to MarylandABLE or any other ABLE program, but rather, in the event of an audit, you would want to be sitting across the table from an auditor and be able to provide them with receipts on how you use that money, right? So the oxygen or the, that I was able to pay for my daughter. I didn't have an account back then when she needed it, but I would have been able to say, this is my expenses monthly for her oxygen, right? So Jeff, I know we are running short on time. I do just want to cover a couple of things because I want to be mindful of everyone else's time. I'm happy to stick around and answer questions for a bit, but I want to make sure people do at least hear about this. Here in Maryland, a couple of the features we have is an online gifting page. And you heard me talk about, my daughter used her gifting page around the holidays and on her birthdays. This is a wonderful tool. If you have an ABLE account, haven't activated it yet, please think about doing it. We have about 400 people that have activated their gift page out of our 6,000 account holders. And over the last 5.5 years, collectively have received over $2.5 million in gifts. Okay, people do use this. It's a wonderful, easy platform. You can text the link, you can message it through Facebook, you can send it by email. And it's a link, you just pops up on their phone. They say, how much would you like to contribute? And, and hit the send button. It goes directly into the ABLE account. That person, if they live in Maryland, can use that contribution as an income deduction on their Maryland state taxes. Another thing I want to talk about is this prepaid card option. This is another way to be able to take withdrawals from that ABLE account. And this is an area that I've seen tremendous growth for my daughter as a 19-year-old young lady with an intellectual disability, being able to have this prepaid card, participate in the community using this card, buying her own school supplies. When she needs new sneakers, she's able to buy them and pay for them. She's learning about budgeting and saving with her ABLE account, right? So this is a great tool to use. Especially if you're trying to teach someone about some financial literacy. You're going to load money from your ABLE account onto the prepaid card. So my daughter doesn't have access to all the funds in her ABLE account, just what I've loaded on the card, but it's a great tool to teach her about how much money she has on the card and what she can spend. And it also gives account legal representatives or ALRs the opportunity to set spending limits if we need to. If someone struggles with specific stores, you can block a certain store if you needed to. Again, these are just additional things that if there's a need for it, but there's a lot of different features with the prepaid card that I really don't have time to get into with all of that, but it's fantastic. The other thing is, this is new. If you're attending as a repeat attender for Enable program, I want to let you know that we now have available direct deposit of Social Security funds into Enable account, and that can be set up online. We also have payroll contributions that you can make online. So some really great things are happening, account enhancements here with MarylandABLE. We talked about that tax deduction. Let's talk
Kelly,
briefly about
Kelly,
yes.
real quick, I want to let you know we do have up until 11:30, just to let you know.
Thank you. I don't want to have to rush through this stuff.
I got the impression you might have thought we had to wrap up a little bit sooner, but if you got time, we got time.
Okay, so, excellent. So yeah. I did want to just talk about that a little bit. If there's questions about the prepaid card or the gifting page, let's take a pause here and answer those.
Sorry, I just muted myself. You'd like to do a few questions?
Yes, let's take a few questions about gifting page or prepaid card or the QDEs that we've talked about. And when I talked about maintaining receipts, it doesn't have to be a fancy system, guys. It can be as simple as, a file folder, Able Receipts 2023. If you're more sophisticated than I am, and God knows most people are when it comes to technology, a lot of people just scan their receipts and keep it in a folder. Anything you want to do is fine, but maintain those receipts, which reminds me about the prepaid card. One of the cool things about that is it does list all of your places that you purchased things from for the prepaid card, breaks it out into spending categories. You can upload your receipts. It's a really cool tool. So anyway, I'm getting excited about the prepaid card, but I'll stop, Jeff, and you can ask some questions.
We talk about the prepaid card here a lot, Kelly. So it's a good tool. So we have a few questions here. They are kind of bouncing around here. So I'd just like to go ahead and pose them to you. Does the disability rating mean the person must have a Social Security approved disability, meaning if they were denied SSI benefits but medically have been determined disabled by the providers who are treating them?
So it depends on why they were denied. Sometimes people are denied because they're earning too much money. So really, you just want to have a physician that is able to confirm that the person does have a disability that is going to, it can't be a disability like, I got into a car accident and I broke my leg and I'm in therapy right now trying to rehab from it. You can't open an ABLE account for something like that. It has to be a disability that is going to be present with you throughout your life and is going to have an impact on your ability to either live independently or be able to maintain employment and live on your own consistently throughout your lifetime. So it's not for disabilities that are and I hate to discount anybody's disability. If you broke your leg and you couldn't work for a year, I take nothing away from that, but it has to be something that is going to be present with you throughout your lifetime. So if a physician can qualify that, then yes. Even people say with mental health diagnosis, okay, sometimes they're doing really well and they're able to maintain employment, but then they may go through periods where they're not able to work. So again, that still would qualify as a qualifying disability. It just has to be more of a significant life impairment. So if you want to email me your question about your family member who has a disability, I could probably be more specific since I don't know all the background.
Okay, very good. General questions are great here. Sometimes more specific situations need to be addressed offline. Can you have more than one ABLE account, an investment ABLE account, and a checking/savings?
Okay, so the rule is nationwide, only one ABLE account per person. The good news is that you can have a cash savings, and investment. They're all part of the same ABLE account. So you have money in the ABLE, but a portion of your money is in cash savings, and a portion of your money is in whatever investment options. So if you were really interested in going with a program who has a checking account option, I could recommend a resource to you. It's called Able Today, ABLETODAY.org. And what this does is provide you with a link to all the programs, and you can kind of compare. Some state programs have a checking account option, some have a prepaid card, some have a debit card. It's really just dependent upon what their program decided to do. We have 4 investment options plus cash. I believe the state of Tennessee has 11. So for someone who's a real financial savvy investor, they're like, yeah, I love Tennessee because they've got all these additional ones. So you can do a comparison. And while we would love for you to be with MarylandABLE, most important to us, and sincerely and truly we mean this, is we want you to have the ABLE account that has features that best meets the needs of your family member. So check that resource out and you can compare.
Okay. Are ABLE accounts FDIC insured?
The cash portion of the ABLE account. So if you've selected cash, it is FDIC insured. If you have selected an investment, that portion is not going to be insured because we can't control market fluctuations in the stock market. So if you choose an investment, understand that you are subject to the same rises and falls in that market that everybody else is.
Okay, let's do a couple more. Would SSDI be affected by the $100,000 account balance limit?
No.
Okay. My daughter's 19 and we are pursuing guardianship. Do we have to wait until guardianship is established before we open the accounts?
You do not. Under our new regulations that went into place on June 1st, you do not. You could just open and manage the account on behalf of your daughter by selecting parent as the option.
Okay, and one more. Might be a personal question you want to answer or not, but how many prepaid cards do you have?
Does the program have, or do I have? So I have.
How many prepaid cards do you have?
Do you have? I have one prepaid card. It's my daughter's card, and she uses it, but I will also use it when I need to. For example, registering her for summer camps. I'll go online and I'll say, hey, Lily, I need your ABLE prepaid card because I'm going to put your prepaid card number in here. So we've just selected one, but a lot of people like having 2 because of convenience sake. One person, who's the ALR might want that prepaid card to carry with them for picking up prescriptions or, doing whatever that you need. And the other person needs that card with him or her for being out in the community. So it's $1.25 per month to have an ABLE prepaid card. It doesn't automatically come with the ABLE account, but you can select it. So keep in mind that it will cost $125 per card.
Okay.
So for those people that open an ABLE account, they're like, I don't know if I want a prepaid card. Don't worry, no pressure. You don't have to open it up if you don't want to, but you don't have to choose it when you enroll. You can go back in a couple months later and say, I think I do want a prepaid card. And you just go online and click prepaid card, order it, and they'll send you one.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at the account fees. So in order to have an ABLE account, we have an annual maintenance fee associated with that account. And this is $35. It's for the year, but we don't take it out all at one time. It is automatically deducted quarterly at $8.75. It's also prorated. So someone who opened their ABLE account yesterday will not pay $35 this year. They're just going to be paying for September the 11th through the end of the calendar year. They'll be charged those fees. And remember, if you do choose any of the investment options, there's a investment-based fee that comes with that, and that is taken care of when you actually make the investment. So it is you know, it doesn't get assessed quarterly. It happens when you make the investment purchase. All right. And some people say, you know, why is there an account fee at all, actually? That's a good question. So we, the state of Maryland, facilitates the MarylandABLE program, but we are not, the state is not a financial institution, it's the state, right? So we have to partner with financial institutions, banks, right? So we've partnered with the Bank of New York Mellon. That is the bank that holds in one giant MarylandABLE trust all the money that's in the cash option, right? We've also partnered with Vestwell, who is our program manager. These are the people that handle all those back end things like making contributions, sending it to BNY, taking withdrawals, sending those payments off for those, you know, when people set up those monthly payment, third-party payments. They operate our customer support team, which is available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. So, you know, they operate our website. So this is what that $35 fee goes to these financial institutions for their participation in facilitating and maintaining this plan. Okay, so when it comes to enrollment, there is no enrollment period. You can enroll anytime you want, and you would do so by going to the website. We often say that if you're interested in opening a MarylandABLE ABLE account, we would like you to type in www.marylandable.org, because if you happen to Google MarylandABLE, you may or may not wind up with a MarylandABLE account. We've had people that have clicked on that, enrolled in an ABLE account, only to find out that they were with ABLE Now. ABLE Now in Maryland, ABLE Now in Tennessee, ABLE Now, you know, that's a program open for national enrollment. They thought since they typed MarylandABLE, they were with MarylandABLE, but they are actually in a Virginia plan, and were very upset when it came to tax time because they couldn't claim their contributions here in Maryland on their MarylandABLE account because they didn't have one. So anyway, if you go to our MarylandABLE website, there will be a button in the upper right-hand corner that says Open an ABLE account now. And that's where you would go for enrollment. But we do suggest that you take a look at our website. There's a frequently asked questions section that may be really helpful to you. All the forms that I've talked about today, like the physician's form, would be available there. And you would just be able to download that and print it off. Then most importantly is our program disclosure book. I'm sharing with you a summary of everything about MarylandABLE, but certainly don't have time to go into all the specifics, but everything that you want to know about the program is available in our program disclosure book. So when you go to open your ABLE account and you select open an ABLE account, it's going to take you to a Meet Our Program Manager Vestwell page. These are the people that's running the website, okay? So don't be alerted if you see the name Vestwell. It's supposed to be there. You haven't been redirected to, you know, place that you shouldn't be. They are going to be the ones that's going to be setting up this account enrollment for us. And one of the things that we recommend is that you have a couple things available to you when you sit down for your enrollment. You're going to want Social Security number for the account owner, person with a disability, and if there's going to be an ALR that's helping to manage that account, that authorized legal representative will need a Social Security number as well. Then you want to think about, what bank account do I want to link to my MarylandABLE account? And again, it can be a checking account, a savings account. It's your choice, okay? But just make sure you have with you the bank routing number and the account number for whatever account you choose to go with, all right? And then once the account is open, You're able to manage your account online 24/7. You can log in and make contributions. You can set up monthly contributions. You can discontinue monthly contributions. You can take a one-time withdrawal. You can set up, the withdrawals for third-party payments. Everything is done and managed completely online. And this is where, if you get to that point where you're on account management and you have any specific questions, we recommend reaching out to that customer support team. They're available. They can, pull up your screen. They're looking at what you're looking at. They're able to direct you, now click on this button that says transfer. Now click on the drop-down menu. They'll walk you through all of that. They are available to you at the number that you see on the screen, that 855-563-2253, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. Very helpful with that kind of stuff. A couple of important numbers that we want to cover as a recap. Here in Maryland, to open your ABLE account, it's a minimum contribution of $25 to open that account. And then you decide from that point on when and how much you want to put in, as long as it's a minimum of a $5 deposit. Our account fees here in Maryland is $35. Remember that they're prorated and assessed quarterly. There is an asset-based fee if you choose one of the investment options. And if you select the prepaid card option, it's $1.25 per month, whether you use the card 40 times or you don't use it at all, right? So it's a monthly fee. The contribution limits here in Maryland and across the country are $17,000 a year until the IRS changes that gift tax exclusion law, and then it would go up. But for right now, it's $17,000. And if you have a family member who's eligible for able to work contributions, he or she can contribute above that $13,590. So family members and friends, when they make contributions, it's going into that bucket that holds the $17,000 in contributions. But the account owner, him or herself, when they make contributions that are able to work, it goes in that other bucket. So, they could potentially, if they took advantage of the $17,000 plus the $13,590, right, that would be, what is that? $21,590. I'm not really great at math, but I think that's right. Account limits. Okay, so a $100,000 is the amount that you can have in your ABLE account before your Social Security or SSI benefits are put on pause. Even if you exceed that $100,000 limit and your Social Security benefits or SSI is on pause, your Medicaid and any waivers that you have continue. At the point that you would spend down money and that balance were to fall below 100,000, Social Security is able to automatically reactivate those SSI cash benefits. People say, well, how are they going to know? Well, one of the requirements in our regulations is that ABLE programs nationwide report monthly to Social Security ABLE account holders and their balance in their account. That's how come they know. So people say, well, I'm applying for SSI. Should I list my ABLE account? Should I put it on there? You should, because they're going to know about it anyway if you have an ABLE account. Any account that is attached to your family member's Social Security number, they're going to know about it, okay? And our tax benefits, there we go, that $2,500 state income deduction per contributor per ABLE. And if somebody asks, yes, this is doubled. It would be up to $5,000 for families that are married and filing joint. So this is our website, our customer support information. One of the things that I'd recommend is that you visit our website and just sign up for our newsletter. I will promise you this, I will not blow up your email box. I send out about 4 newsletters a year, usually quarterly, and it'll be full of information about program updates and things that it's important to know, any enhancements that we had. So it's a good thing to subscribe, especially if you're an account holder and if you want to know more about ABLE. Also, consider visiting our events page that's on our website. It'll tell you where we're going to be in the community. We go all over the great state of Maryland. We're at different resource fairs. Please stop in and visit us. Bring your questions to us. Talk to an ABLE expert. We're happy to see you. Okay, so Jeff, that's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to stick around for questions.
Kelly, thank you so much. Great information, you are such a wonderful resource and advocate for Maryland Able. We never get tired of having you and information about the program on our webinar series here. We appreciate you very much, if I don't say it enough. But I think I do.
You do.
You're so great. You're so great. We appreciate you. This is one of our most highly attended, if not most highly attended webinars each year, just because of the interest and importance of Maryland Able accounts for the communities that we serve here at Elville & Associates. So again, Kelly, thank you so much. So we do have some questions to address here before we close on time. And so let's go ahead and get to those. Thanks to everybody for being here today. So Kelly, might be up your alley maybe for a CPA, but question is, if rent is paid to a parent, does that parent incur a tax liability for charging rent?
That is definitely something for your tax accountant,
Okay.
because I would think it would count, but again, I can't really speak to that because you're charging rent, but I don't know if it's different because if it's a family member with disability, so definitely follow up with them.
Very good. Do you have the link for the SSA direct deposit readily available?
So that is something that is within the ABLE account. There's a link that you click on to do that, and it's just been recently added. So if you have an account already and you haven't seen it, you're thinking, where is that? If you log on to your account, it would be available there.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Could you address if there have been any identity theft issues with ABLE accounts or prepaid debit cards?
Prepaid debit cards. I'm not sure that I've heard of that with the prepaid cards. There has definitely been people who've tried to open ABLE accounts that they're not real people. You know, they could be somebody else. They're opening it on behalf of a fake person. There is always, you know, a risk that somebody could try to access, you know, steal somebody's identity like anything else. So I would imagine if they did get access to a card, they could use it, and you know, but I'm not really sure if that someone's card has been taken or hacked or whatever, because again, it's a prepaid card. It's going to have just the amount of money on it that was placed on there.
Okay. What if funds were inadvertently used for an ineligible expense? Is there a penalty?
Great question there. So what would happen is, in the event of an IRS audit, and they were to determine that that was not, you guys, you know, you tried to defend it, they said no, you said yes, they said no, we went back and forth, right? And they said, nope, bottom line is, it is not accepted. What they would do is they would charge interest on the earnings portion, right? I can tell you two things that the IRS says absolute no. These are the only two things I've ever heard. Number one, gambling. You cannot use ABLE funds for gambling. And secondly, you may not use ABLE funds to purchase gifts for other people. So let's just find out, you know, let's just say that somebody purchased, you know, a $200 TV or whatever for a family member, and the IRS said, no, you can't do that. They would charge you taxes on the earnings of that $2,000. Right.
Okay.
And what was the second part of that question? Was it?
Well, is there a penalty? So I think you addressed that.
So there's taxes, and there could be a tax penalty on top of that. So yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As far as QDEs with regards of support staff, can you use ABLE funds for mileage, ticket for the support staff to attend events with the person with special needs, etc.?
So you want to be careful if you're receiving, the answer is yes, you can do that, but you want to make sure it doesn't intersect with any other regulations that you have with your funding source. So let's just say you have a waiver and you're supposed to be going through self-directed supports. You want to use that money for that. You know, I don't want to, you just want to clarify for that, but let's just say you don't have, you're hiring your own support, you don't have self-directed support, whatever, you're just paying for it. Yes, you can make, you can pay a person for support. out of the ABLE account if you need to do that. But you want to make sure you have documentation, you know, a timesheet or the person signing it, so you can say, hey, I'm paying Jeff for, you know, care for my family member. These were the hours, these are the dates, this is what we agreed upon. Have that documentation in place.
Okay, what if we open an ABLE account in Maryland where we currently live, but she moves to California for college and lives there permanently? Does she have to close the account?
She does not. She can take her ABLE account with her wherever she goes. We are open for national enrollment. However, let's just say she relocates there and she starts working there and she's like, you know what, I want to start taking advantage of my own contribution, tax advantages for my contribution. She could switch it over, roll it over to CalAble for no fees. There's no fee to roll it over to another existing ABLE account, but she can do that at any time.
Okay. Can I link the ABLE account to my and my husband's savings account, or does the linked account have to be in my son's name?
So with an ABLE account, it has to either be in, the account must be in the name of the account owner, the person with a disability, or the person who's serving as ALR. So as long as, you know, you're the ALR and your name is on that account, you can do that. And actually, I do want to mention that you can actually link your ABLE account to up to 2 bank accounts. So sometimes people want to link it to the account holders, and sometimes mom and dad are like, look, we're the ones that's really funding this account. We also want to link it to ours. Makes it real easy to make those, set up those monthly contributions.
And along the same lines, do I set up a separate account for linking with ABLE, or can I use the current account established for the ADP?
ADP, I'm not sure what ADP.
I believe it probably means adult disabled person, possibly.
Okay.
That's my guess.
So thanks. Yeah, you can have a separate account if you want, or you can use an existing account. There's 2 different feelings about this. When I talk to families across the state, some people are like, look, I don't like to commingle any funds. This is my personal opinion. I just want to do it. I want to have a separate clean account. Some people say, no, I want to link it to my existing account where that is where I receive the money for my family member with disabilities. And it is totally up to you.
How do we move the SI payments to the ABLE account?
So this is going to be through that linked account. If you haven't set it up to where there's a direct deposit of SSI funds directly into the ABLE account, you would have to link the funds, the account from where the SSI funds come to the ABLE account, and then you could make transfers. You could go in there monthly and say, this time I'm putting $200 over there in ABLE, this time I'm putting 50, this time I'm putting 500, whatever you want to do, if you want to do that.
Okay, and looks like our last question for now, can you close out an account on ABLE because of a change? Perhaps there's a change in guardianship, or somebody passes away. Do you need to update a password, or do you need to close the account out? How would something like that work?
So in the event that the account, the authorized legal representative or the ALR is going to change, this is where we have that on our website under forms. You would click on forms and you would choose a form that says change ALR or remove ALR. And you could just take care of that by filling out that form and submitting it to our program manager. In the event of the passing of an account holder, what would happen is the money in the account could be used to pay out any remaining expenses, funeral expenses, medical expenses, whatever. And then what would happen to that account at that point is it would become part of that person's estate. So if they had a will, you know, directing that ABLE account to a family member or whatever, it would go through that. But remember, when the money comes, when the ABLE account is closed and liquidated and goes to the family member or the person appointed to receive it, that is considered a non-qualified disability expense unless you are receiving the funds into your ABLE account because you have a disability. So, you know, for example, if my daughter were to pass, we could have the ABLE account funds, but we would have to now pay taxes on the earnings. right? We could still have, it could be liquidated and we could have the funds remaining in her account. But now we are going to pay taxes because we don't have the disability and get the tax-free savings.
Okay. All right. Those are all of our questions. Kelly, thank you
Great
so
questions,
much.
guys. That was
Boy,
awesome.
great questions. This is the presentation that has the best questions. We do a lot of them. This one is the one that keeps the presenter on her toes the most. Great job, Kelly. So
Thanks.
we've got just a minute and a half. As we wrap up here, I always send out a follow-up message to those that are new to our series here with hopefully some substantive information as a follow-up. Also has the slides again and the video link if you want to watch again, or send it to family or friends that are interested. As far as our webinar series goes, we're very busy here rounding out September. Tomorrow for our advisors, we have our quarterly advisors forum. We have an interesting topic, an intriguing topic, politics and planning, how the advisory team can best serve clients during the upcoming 2023-2024 political cycle. Next, on the 20th, we have an in-person presentation at Howard County Public Library Central Branch about Medicare, which plan is right for you. October 15th is the open enrollment starting period, so that is a good time for that. And then on Tuesday the 26th at 7 o'clock, if you are always looking for an evening presentation, Steve Elville will be talking about estate planning and elder law essentials. So looking forward to that. And lastly, Wednesday the 27th, legacy and charitable giving and philanthropy with Steve Elville. That's an often asked about topic that we try to offer about once a year. And that is coming around on the 27th, also at 10 o'clock. So it is 11:30, and it's funny how that works. We are finished. So Kelly, thanks again. Thanks to everybody for being here and for making this a great presentation. And we look forward to seeing you again soon on the Elville webinar series. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.